Hiya, going to talk about something a little bit different today. I always talk about music, usually. I mean, that's the name of the channel, Paul Gibson Music. But one of my other passions away from music is photography, particularly film photography. I use digital. I used to use digital a lot when I was doing weddings. I used to shoot weddings, I used to shoot fashion shoots, I used to do band shots, I used to do lots of photography. I don't do so much these days because of just time, really, and the band takes up most of my time. But I love it, and it's an important creative outlet for me. But I really enjoy film photography, analog photography, some people call it, which I don't really get that. But it's just, I find film photography and old cameras particularly just a very satisfying organic process. It's great to whip out a digital camera on the street. I like doing street photography and just set everything to auto and just go, just fire, and you don't have to think about anything at all. Autofocus, it's great. But I also like getting my hands dirty with manual cameras and photographing completely manually. And my favourite film camera that I own is this little beauty here, which is a Kiev 4A. Now these are Soviet cameras. These were built in Russia between, I think, sort of in the post-war period up to the mid to late 80s. This particular model comes from 1979, I think, having looked at the serial number. But it's just a beautiful camera. It's really, really nice. It's kind of based on a Leica, I think. I'm not sure if it's a slavish replica of a Leica, and I'm not sure which model it is, if it is indeed a copy of a Leica, but it's a similar kind of camera. So it's a rangefinder, so you're looking through the viewfinder, you're not looking through the lens when you take a picture. It takes a bit of getting used to because you're not seeing what you're actually photographing. The image is slightly transposed this way, although there's grid lines printed within the viewfinder so you can sort of line up your shot. It's got a 50mm Jupiter 8M lens on it, which is a beautiful lens, really contrasty, really sharp. 50mm aperture, maximum aperture of f2, so it's nice and wide, so it's nice and fast, which is really good. It's got a light meter inside, a built-in selenium cell, which you can see just about in there under the little flap. It's not terribly reliable, so I tend to use a light meter app on my phone, or I'm sort of fairly good at guessing what the the optimum settings would be if you're in daylight, depending on the kind of film you've got in, the speed of the film and the light. You can get a good feel. After a while you can get a rough idea. And if you use a film like, I really like Ilford, that's FP4, one of my favourites. In fact, a lot of these black and white films like Kodak, T-Max and stuff like that, they've got a lot of latitude, so if you don't get the exposure perfect, there's enough latitude within the film to be able to get a usable exposure when you're processing or developing. So it's quite easy to calculate the exposure. But you've got light meters on phones, like I say, apps which are pretty accurate. So that's it. It's a nice heavy camera, feels good in your hand, feels really chunky. You've got to be careful about because you're looking through the viewfinder. If you did put your finger over the lens inadvertently, you wouldn't know because you're looking through here. So you've got to be careful not to do that. But you can focus easy enough there. Focus lock's on at the moment. It's got a very fragile shutter curtain inside. Some of the Leicas and some sort of rangefinders like this have got canvas curtains which are really fragile. This one's got a metal one. It's pretty quiet, so it's good for stealth photography, but it's really fragile, so you've got to be very careful. You've got to cock the shutter before you advance the film, otherwise you risk damaging the shutter curtain. And then you've got your in fact the film advance is built into this little rotary knob here. Shutter release is in the middle. It hasn't got a film advance arm like some cameras have. It's all housed within the wheel there. It's got a hot shoe for flash if you want to use it, and then you've got the shutter, your film speed and your shutter speed selection on there as well. Mine, the shutter speed on mine's a bit clunky. I'm not sure if that's just, you know, a trait of the design, or if it's just something that's slightly wrong with mine. But it works, but it's, you've got to really, you know, sometimes it seems to want to locate itself in between shutter settings and not actually go into the shutter setting that you want it to be. But you can, you know, you can sort of work with that. If you want to change the film, you pull up these two little rings there, and these just turn, and the whole, the front, sorry, the back and the bottom lifts off in one piece, and then you can change your film. Not going to do that because I've got a film in there. If I take it off, it'll ruin the film. So yeah, so I've got a case for it as well, which is over here. Oops, there we go. So yeah, beautiful brown tooled leather case with a sort of plush red inside, which you can see there, which is a, you know, a lovely object in itself, really. So yeah, if you want to buy these, you can get them off eBay pretty easily. I mean, you know, you're buying a lot of camera for not a lot of money, really. You've got a Leica type rangefinder. You've got a Zeiss clone lens in the Jupiter M, and you can pick them up in good condition off eBay for sort of up to about £40, £35–40 probably. And it's just a really good way to learn about film photography, manual exposure, all that kind of thing. Because these were made in their millions, you know, there are literally millions of these. And the design, okay, this is a Kiev. You can also get cameras called Zorkis, cameras called Feds, and they're all basically the same kind of camera. They're all based on the same design, really. This is 35mm. Obviously, you can buy medium format versions of similar kind of cameras like this. There's one which I've got my eye on. The name escapes me what it is now, but I really fancy one of those. So they're easy to find. They're made in their millions, so they're not rare at all. They're easy to pick up. Most of them, I mean, they're really well built. They're built like tanks, so they are pretty durable. So I think you'd be hard pushed to find one that was completely knackered. You know, they're in, most of them are in a pretty good state. So yeah, have a look on eBay if you want to get one, and you can pick one up for not a lot of money, really. The older ones probably are probably riskier. I think they started building these in the immediate post-war period, so around the mid to late 40s. And they built them right up until the late 80s, I believe. I don't know about the Zorkis or the Feds, but certainly the Kievs, these were built during that time period. So yeah, really, really nice camera. This was actually a gift from my parents, so it's something that's got a nice sort of sentimental value to me, you know, sort of personal value. So, you know, like bass guitars, I've been through loads of cameras in my life, and I buy them and play with them for a while and get bored of them, sell them and get something else, and you know, that's just the way it's always been for me. But I'll never get rid of this because my mum and dad bought it for me. So yeah, so lovely camera and a really good way to get into film photography. So there you go, that's the Kiev 4 rangefinder 35mm film camera.